Well, good afternoon, Stephanie. Tell us your name and the kind of profession you are in.
Stephanie White, and I'm a jack of all trades, but my main profession since I was 17 has been professional wilderness guide.
And
And
how in the world do you get to that stage in your life? What is the education or the experience that you need to be successful doing that?
well, uh, I'm always been in the outdoors, and how I got involved is I just was interested in wildlife and animals, and so I ended up just going out on adventures and looking for creatures and started I took a couple outward bound courses, which is um, a wilderness based program, and I worked for a wilderness camp, and I my degrees are in biology and geology and minor in art with a master's in recreation. None of those you really need. What you really need is experience, being in the outdoors and learning to become a leader. Leadership is the big thing in becoming a wilderness guide.
You
And
must have to like people because you're guiding people, right?
actually, I've been terrified of people all my life, and I learned that part. That was the hard part for me. Um, I learned to kind of when I'm working, it's almost like being an actor. So I learned to take on a different role and become a different person when I'm guiding than I am at home, which is pretty much I live with my animals. So that was a skill I had to learn. I had all the outdoor skills. I had kayaking and climbing and plant animal identification, and I was always an athlete, so I had the physical fitness, but learning to work with people was a different, that was the hardest thing I had to learn
Probably. Because
thing.
it's not the thing you love. So, how do you get a job doing that? Are there companies that you would turn to first, or how do you get started in a place like that?
Well, you start with learning the skills, maybe taking courses and doing wilderness expeditions, and then taking an instructor's course, which they offer, particularly with the programs called Knowles and Outward Bound. Knowles is the National Outdoor Leadership School, and Outward Bound has been around since I think it was the 40s. It was developed in the UK when they were finding that younger seamen were dying when the ships sank, and the older ones were living, and it turned out it was life experience. So they developed a program called Outward Bound, where they would put people in situations similar to a shipwreck or stress, and it became mind over matter. And then from then on, the young shipmen knew that they could get through these situations. And then Knowles became an offshoot of that, developing leaders because they didn't have any leaders when the program came to the US. And it's quiet time, buddy. Sorry. And so Knowles became more of the skill leadership oriented, and Outward Bound became more of, oh, the I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but more of the psychological aspect of being in the wilderness, you know, pushing people to the limit, but not too far where they
Fail.
Fail.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, controlled failure so that you can
Yeah.
fail but learn from the failure. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. So how large of groups do you take out? Or do you take out like families or larger
Um,
groups? And give us an
so
example of the type of place you would take someone.
so now I'm a contractor. I contract out because I've gotten to the level where now I can take jobs or not jobs. And when I first started, I was taking mostly students, we called them, from age 14 to, I think the oldest I've had was 70, out in the field. We started originally back in the day with groups of 16 and three to four instructors. And now with environmental changes, loss of wilderness, we've dropped down to 10 students. And then when I'm guiding, so there's the leadership, more of the educational aspect of teaching people how to become wilderness guides, to guiding people that want to go somewhere but they don't know how to do it, or they don't have the confidence to do it, and they want a leader to take them into the field. And that uh, runs from family groups to older people. What we're finding in our field these days is that the young people don't want to go out for as much time as they used to. Now we do, it seems like our age group has gone up
Hmm.
to 50s and older. It used to be 20s and 30s and 40s. And now you see a lot of 50 to 70-year-olds and even 80-year-olds out in the field doing interesting things, trekking, um, hacking, some climbing, kayaking, sailing, all those kinds of things.
And you stay out for a long period of time, or how long does a trip typically take?
I would stay out in my career for a week to 90 days. Yeah.
90 days?
Yep.
Where do you find food?
We would have food every 10 days, we'd get a re-ration, right?
Okay.
The short trips, the 7 to 10 days, we usually bring our food with us. Hmm. Or if we,
Where's the,
hmm,
go ahead, please.
no, go ahead.
Tell us some of the places you've gone specifically. And tell us where you are, because our viewers might be surprised where you are at this very moment.
I'm in Wyoming right now. I just, so I pop all over the place. I've worked in New Brunswick, Canada. I've done things in Chile, um, Peru, um, Mexico. Lived there for a long time in Baja, Wyoming, all out west in the southwest, um, Africa, and Alaska. Did I say Alaska? Alaska and Costa Rica. I don't know, places like that, just some different places.
So what is the scariest animal you've encountered?
Humans.
Ah, good answer. That is true. Other than humans, what might have been a hair-raising experience? Tell us one really cool one.
With animals? Hair
Or
raising?
with anything, with anything.
Oh, with anything? Well, I've been in an avalanche. I've, I've had, I've had, I've had some interesting experiences. I've been in, as part of my job has always been search and rescue. We're wilderness first responders as well. We've had to do different search and rescues out looking for people on the ocean, in the mountains, uh, all kinds of things. So those are interesting experiences.
Yes.
Um,
You
Avin,
mentioned, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned that you train up and coming guides. Are
Hmm.
you currently hiring guides? What would you be looking for other than those people engaging at
So
the
yeah,
basic levels and those skills, gaining skills? What would you recommend?
experience. So, a lot of people will go and they'll take courses and classes, and they don't have their own personal experiences in the field. Um, they they'll take a weekend course, and they're kind of a hobby kayaker or a hobby hiker, and they really need to have experience. So experience guiding and understanding, it depends on the level. So the levels go all the way up to very basic primitive guiding, which is you're out camping, you carry your own gear, you learn to cook in the field, all of those kinds of things. To you're cooking for clients, you're putting tents up, you're basically there for them 24/7. To even a higher level where it's more of a luxury form of camping where you're you need to make sure their towels are clean every day, so you're switching things out, that they get cocktails, etc. So it depends on the level you're gonna work at. um, I guess that might answer the question.
It does. Is this a field that you can make decent money doing? Is this a legitimate career path for someone?
It is. I mean, I was that was my only career for a long, long, long time, and I saved money in the bank. You have to be smart, right? You have to be smart about it and invest and not overspend. And we would be we'd get a bunch of people, and you live in one house, everybody pays rent, so it's hard living. You also have to realize that in our field, relationships are very tough, so you've got to be willing to compromise there. If you're looking for a relationship, it's not a great field for that. If you're looking for a community, it's very good for that. It's um, similar to the military in that you're you're out there, and sometimes we're in environments where we don't have. Well, sometimes we are environments where there are people with guns, depending on where you're working, but um, it the community you're in, they understand how you live, where you work. Outside communities don't really understand. So it's a different lifestyle. It's a very rewarding lifestyle. You see some amazing things, you meet some amazing people, both clients, students, and fellow guides or instructors. Uh, it's very rewarding. A lot of people don't make it a full career. They branch off. They'll, I know people who have gone into environmental law, who have gone into wilderness medicine off of it, who have gone into parks and recreation, all kinds of fields. The neat thing about it was when I mentioned earlier that it's always been hard for me to be with people, is that it teaches you leadership. It teaches you also how to be a really good follower. It teaches strong teamwork. You end up having to solve problems and rely on each other for solving a problem. It can't be, it's my way or the highway. It's got to be, you know, a series of steps and plans and knowing each other's abilities and knowing that you've got each other's back.
One
It's
thing for sure in your field is you would never have a redundant, monotonous day ever. Like, do you
never.
even have the same day twice ever? I don't think so.
No, no. It's all, every time you pick up a new group or work with a different guide or instructor, it's always different. It's a whole different part of chemistry. It's kind of like baking a cake. Oh, I'll throw in chocolate chips today, but it's not going to taste the same tomorrow if I toss in some strawberries. It's every day, every trip is different. And when people ask me about accidents or disasters, my main answer to them is I wasn't there. I can't judge that because I wasn't there. I don't know the circumstances. And if I was there, would it have been different? Maybe it probably would be, because I would have been different. Would that disaster happened? I don't know. So you can't really predict that kind of thing. You've got the weather, you've got
Yeah.
wildlife, you've got the mountains, you got the geology, you've got other people involved, you've got food, you've got so much, there's so much going on that you can't predict things. So yeah, every day is different. I've camped here 1,000 times, but oh wow, this is the first time I've had a blizzard up to my knees this time of year. So it changes. So you have to adapt to the environment, adapt to the situation, and nothing's canned. So you're constantly thinking. We used to call it the what ifs. What if this happens? Will I be prepared? What if that happens? Will I be prepared? You know, we tell, when you're setting up camp, you call it bomb proofing. So if a hurricane comes through, you don't lose your gear. You know where everything is. If a blizzard comes in and things are buried, you've got your stuff so that you can get to your stove, to get to your food, to make sure the animals haven't eaten it. There's a lot going on.
You have the coolest life. I'm serious. I could really interview you for about 2 hours more, but I'm going to call it a finished.